the game. So then we'll move to, yeah, no, pardon the pun, I guess. So one-on-one, then working with more players, and then finally a full practice with the team. So that's really, the return to sport testing that we do is really a return to their sporting activity, not a clearance to return to play directly. And then they have to go through that on-field portion, and then finally competition.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important thing to clarify, that return to sport and return to sport testing doesn't just mean that single test point, and it doesn't. It also doesn't mean that the athlete can't do anything before.
Yep, of course.
So
no,
go for it.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I think we've covered one of the questions that got upvoted a lot on Slido was, what do you recommend as a return to sport test battery? How many tests and how many positive tests do you need? I think you just covered that, but can I get you just to say that for us once more again? Which are the tests and what's the criteria for the tests?
So we do quad strength, and I'll tell you that we're going to do quad strength first, because if their quad strength isn't anywhere near 90%, we're not going to bother to do the others. We'll just have them come back when their quads are stronger. Okay. And we'll do these tests every, month. It depends, how close they are. Right. But if they're within a couple of points, we might do it in 2 weeks. If they're off by a lot, then we're going to sort of retool their home program, or maybe bring them back into the clinic and try and get that quad up to 90. And then we'll do the hop tests. So, and we do them as they were originally written by Dr. Frank Noyes, and we do them in the exact same order every single time. They get one practice, and then there are 2 live tests, and those are averaged. And then compared to we do and then compared to the uninvolved side. And then and then after they do that, we always do this the exact same way: quads, hops, and then they fill out the questionnaires after.
And what's the rationale for that, Lynn?
Because when we were doing the pre-op screening, what we found out is that often they hadn't done anything like this since their injury. So they really had no idea, like their self-report was off a lot. It was so much lower prior, if they did it before than if they did it after. So then we just started to do it in that order, and we're creatures of habit and pretty systematic at our clinic. And Tara Manal, our clinic director, likes to talk about reducing the variability of practice, right? Getting us to all do the same things well, and do the things that are very necessary well. So we do it the same way, and we still do. We've been doing it like that for, I don't know, a very long time, 20 years at least.
And those hop tests, you do single leg hop, triple hop, and then
crossover hop, and then
distance.
Their distance, and then the timed hop for 6 meters.
And there are some folks who might be doing some different hop tests. They might be doing a side hop test. I think we can sort of let them know that that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, part of the reason that we're the things that I like about these big hops, if it's hard to do. That the one thing is, it's hard to do if you don't have a space, but you really just need a 6 meter track. We've done it in hallways we did it for years in our old clinic. But if you think about what hop tests capture, they capture strength, they capture balance, and they capture confidence. So it really is a nice, and not just a standalone. I mean, we do this, like I said, we do this whole, there's aspects of things that are important in all of these, but I think you want to really challenge them in this return to activity battery of tests. Some people do, like, there are tons of different tests. Some people do even have a running component to it that they do. So go for it. Just make sure you have you got to measure quad strength. That's the one thing that you have to do. And then other than that, you should get some feedback from them, the patients, about how they're feeling about their progress, and also some measure of function, a functional performance battery of tests. Pick your poison.
And so one of the questions, and I think it was our top voted question, or it is our top voted question, I can see it on Slido, is what return to sport tests would you recommend for a soccer athlete? I've got limited space and equipment. And I think we've answered that these tests are going to be what you're going to try and adapt to your space and equipment availability. And then are there going to be some other things that you might add in? How would you tailor that for a soccer athlete versus an American football player versus a skier?
Oh, skiers are different. We have to just say that it's a different animal. It's a different mechanism of injury. It's one of the only sports where novices tear their ACLs. Doesn't really happen to novices in other sports. So, I mean, I've had skiers who say, I'm not going to hop. I've never hopped in my life, right? So I would do other things that are more, we used to use those sliding boards. Remember when we had those in the clinics? And different things that would challenge. You'd have to use your imagination and challenge them in ways that would be more appropriate to their sport. In terms of American football and some of those big linemen probably have never hopped a day either, but we do the same. We do that same return to activity battery with all of our other sports. So we're, again, very, I guess, boring, doing the same thing over and over and over, but it's worked for us and has stood the test of time.
Yeah, and I think what might also be helpful for folks is to say, I've got this standard group of tests that I do that I can use with everyone, and then you might tailor something depending on the athlete who's in front of you, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, actually.
Yeah. One thing we haven't mentioned is time.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about time. So we talked a little bit about time because we talked about return to running. And one of the things that we've, your papers and the registries, the international registries primarily, and then some of the American ones, we were quoting bad information. We were giving out bad information in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s. About the success after ACL reconstruction. We were saying, basically everybody's going to return to sport and there won't be any re-injuries. And what we found is that does not happen. And the re-injury rate, it was alarmingly high and is tied to return to level 1 sports, jumping, pivoting, and cutting sports. So one of the things that, again, this is one of those, we never looked. Right? The reports were coming from the surgeon's office, and it was based on their patients who went out of their office and then didn't come back. So they assumed they're all doing fine, right? Well, some of them weren't doing fine, and some of them didn't come back to that doctor. They went to another doctor, right? Or maybe they didn't go to a doctor at all. Again, so we really did, till groups like yours started really looking at it. And I'm sure, I know the surgeon whose data you were looking at, and I'm sure he was alarmed at the beginning when you actually looked at the data and he said, wait a minute, what's happening here? Everybody else says there's a 2% failure rate or an 8% failure rate. Why is this happening? And it turns out everybody's got the same data, and your numbers and the numbers from Mark Paterno at Cincinnati Children's and the data from our data, the Scandinavian data, they all matched within percentage points, like just a really small variability. So I think that got us trying to think of what are we doing wrong, and what I think we were doing wrong is we were playing this name that tune was an old game, right? I could name that tune in 3 notes. I can name it in 1, right?